General, I have to ask you, this is a pretty coordinated attack, and I think coordinated is an understatement. We had an attack that was via land, air, and sea. It is startling the level of coordination that occurred. We've heard from various professionals and experts so far, sir, that this happening and not being detected by intelligence is eyebrow-raising at a minimum. What are your initial thoughts about what you've heard so far?
Yeah, this is quite unusual. Normally, the Israelis would have the intelligence to be able to counter this pretty quickly. So the Israelis being caught off guard is quite surprising to me. And I will also tell you, Israeli allies such as ourselves and others normally feed Israel intelligence from time to time. And so it appears that we, as well as others, got caught off guard with this particular attack as well. And as you know, that this was synchronized. It's the first attack that I've seen from Hamas, who's able to pull this off from air, sea, and land in a synchronized strategic manner in which they did. And they have the momentum right now because they have about 150,000 soldiers in uniform, and many of those soldiers are at the checkpoints and elsewhere. They're up on the Gaza Strip, they own the West Bank and so forth. They were not prepared for this particular attack. So they're going to have to call up reservists to shore this up, and it's going to take them a few days to do that. And so the Hamas has that momentum right now. And of course, I know that Netanyahu will get his arms around this, but in the meantime, Hamas has the momentum.
General, I want to talk to you about a couple of things that are very concerning from what we're hearing coming out of Israel. One, Israeli soldiers have been captured, as well as Israeli civilians that have been taken hostage. They've been taken into the Gaza Strip. We're also hearing that Hamas is controlling some villages on the southern border of Israel. Talk to our viewers about what type of response is going to have to occur by Israel, by the Israeli Defense Forces, by its mobilized civilians, reservists, to be able to deal with those particular issues, the hostages, as well as the soldiers that have been taken by Hamas at this time.
Yeah, this is a difficult situation for Israel, particularly when you start talking about hostages. And they're going to have to work the targets very carefully to ensure that as they go in and try and get this under control, that they're also looking out for their own people now within Gaza, because many of these hostages will probably be used as human shields. And so they're going to have to watch out for that. The other thing is, very rarely have you seen Hamas penetrate into Israel. And so now they're in the towns and cities within Israel. They will not be able to distinguish between whether they're Israelis or whether they're Palestinian. And so they're going to have to work through that, and it may become an urban battle within these cities that have been captured by Hamas. There's no doubt here that Hamas has had support from the outside world, and I suspect, I do not know, that Iran helped plan this, and Iran proxy soldiers helped plan this as well. And so you may find that there are proxy soldiers that are mingled in with the Palestinians as well. They are usually heavily armed by the by Iran, and so you could perhaps see heavy armament that has already infiltrated into these cities that Israel will have to deal with as well.
Well, there was also some discussion about the northern border of Israel. We know that this attack was launched by Hamas on the southern border in the early morning hours, but the northern border has Iran-backed Hezbollah on that side. From a military perspective, General, there's grave concern, correct, for Israel if something were to occur on the northern border of Israel while Israel is mobilizing, trying to deal with what is going on in the southern border vis-a-vis the Gaza Strip.
Yeah, well, you could also see not just the northern border, you could see the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. And now you have somewhat of a three-front war that Israel will have to deal with. And having been to the Gaza Strip, it is heavily armed by the Israelis, so I think they can handle that piece. Over on the, up in the Golan Heights area, I think they can handle that in terms of Hezbollah. But over in the Gaza Strip is sort of where they take a little risk. And so I think you'll see more pouring from the Gaza Strip versus the Golan Heights area. I think they'll be able to handle that piece. Primary focus will be the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, in my view.
General, I did want to ask the next follow-up question to you. Considering the universal opinion that this was a surprise attack and the fact that there could have been a massive intelligence failure on the part of Israel, what are the continuing concerns then for that country to make sure that you can prevent further attacks happening about which maybe they're not even aware of as of right now?
Yeah, Katie, let me just say this. I am surprised that the Israelis were surprised by this attack. If you think about it, this past year, there's been an uptick in violence between the Palestinians and the Israelis, averaging about 3 a day attacks. And so this has been in a pot of water waiting to boil over for some time, and it boiled over today. And so throughout this year, with all the attacks that have occurred, the Israelis should have been thinking about a possible attack occurring somewhere here and should have been prepared for it. Although they didn't receive intelligence on this, they should have been preparing for some type of response. There's been disenfranchisement from the Palestinians for quite some time over settlement issues. And here we go now in a situation where it's going to take the Israelis quite some time to get under control. And I think you're talking about several days before they're able to get this under control. In terms of the intelligence piece here, I think this will be a tremendous wake-up call for the Israelis to do an after-action review on what really happened in terms of intelligence here. And I actually think it will be a wake-up call for many others that traditionally share intelligence with the Israelis. I also want to go back to not having an ambassador, U.S. ambassador there on the ground.
Yes.
And we do not have, at this point in time, a senior U.S. defense official on the ground. Normally, we have a one-star general that's there. We have a colonel there now. We do not have a general there because of what's going on with the Tuberville, Senator Tuberville not approving our generals to go forward in rank. And so that's where we are in terms of not having a senior defense official there as well.
Retired Lieutenant General Steph Twitty, as always, your insight is invaluable. Thank you for joining us and providing that now. I appreciate it.